Thank you, Pranjal. That was entertaining enough. Now, for the next session, I would like to invite Tony Allen, Executive Director of Strategic Marketing from the IET, to kindly come on the stage and introduce Shri Suresh Prabhu.
Thank you, Suman, and good morning. It's my great honour to introduce Mr. Prabhu, who is a renowned parliamentarian in the country. He's currently the founding Chancellor of the Rishihood University, Chairman of the Drafting Committee for National Cooperation Policy, and the Guest Professor of the London School of Economics. Mr. Suresh has had 10 important cabinet portfolios at the federal level in the Government of India, including industry, power, environment and forest, railways, civil aviation, commerce and industry, fertilisers and chemicals. During his tenure, he has scripted many reforms and effected organisational transformations across India. He's been a member of the Indian Parliament from 1996 to date, first as a member of the Parliament in the lower house for 4 consecutive terms, and later as an MP in the upper house. Under the Modi government, he was a railway, civil aviation and commerce and industry minister. He's also served as the Prime Minister's Sherpa to the G7 and G20 and was involved in shaping the official agenda for the Government of India on key issues for both summits. He laid out a complete blueprint for modernising and revamping the railways and has also initiated a unique real-time customer grievance redressal mechanism, probably one of the first of its kind in the world. Suresh initiated the development of India's new industrial policy with a focus on boosting sustainable manufacturing in India and created an action-orientated plan to further diversify the economy and promote future sustainability. He also laid out a plan for increasing India's exports. The first ever Global Aviation Summit was held under his leadership, and he was the main contributor to the nation's UDAN initiative. Under the Prime Minister, he's held several portfolios from 1998 to 2004 as Minister of Industry, Minister of Environment and Forests, Minister of Fertilisers and Chemicals, Minister of Power, Minister of Heavy Industry and Public Enterprises. One of the most notable achievements of Mr. Prabhu during this period was the reforms he brought in the India power sector. He is credited for championing and enacting the Electricity Act of 2003 and creating securitisation of dues for the provincial states of India. He has also served as chairman of the task force for interlinking of rivers, which envisioned physically linking vast river networks of India to provide needy, year-long irrigation facilities to India's dry regions. He's also an elected member of the World Bank Parliamentary Network and chaired the South Asia Water Regional Group of the World Bank. His other experiences include being a member of the United Nations Commission for Biodiversity and Land Use Change, Global Advisory Council of the WEF, Chairman of the Maharashtra State Finance Commission, and Council on Energy, Environment and Water. Suresh is known for his transparent, forward-looking and comprehensive reform and results-orientated governance. He has been awarded with many honorary doctorates by universities both within and outside India, and he has been tirelessly working on a holistic and replicable model of rural development in more than 2,000 villages. His life has been devoted to social service, and he has engaged with various NGOs and social organisations across the world. Indeed, on the international front, he has been a significant member of renowned global NGOs, such as the Chairman of Asia Energy Foundation, South Asia Chair of Global Water Partnerships, and President of the World Forum for Global Governance. He has been a member of the United Nations Commission for Biodiversity and Land Use Change and the Global Advisory Council of the World Economic Forum. It's great pleasure I invite Suresh Prabhu, sir, on stage. Thank you.
This is the conference in which we are trying to peep into the future. But I'm very happy that my dear friend Tony Allen talked about the past, my past. Any case, you cannot have future which is dealing from the past. And if you don't use present to look into where you came from and where you want to head, I think you are wasting the present. Unlike many others who do that, IET is focusing on present in a manner that will help us to unlearn from the mistakes of the past and ensure that we'll have all a better future. So I must once again, as I did yesterday, congratulate IET for doing something fascinating, wonderful, useful, and that will really help to make a world a better place. That's what yesterday I learned from my friend Shekhar, who said that that's the theme. This is what I always believe in, that all of us must work for that. You know, ever since the first human was born on the planet, there has been a fascination for future. For the first several thousands of years, probably there was no time to think about future, because he was struggling to find some food from somewhere, and therefore his day was devoted only to make sure that the present is good. And because he was focusing only on present, the future was always good, because there was no time to damage the future abilities of the human beings to survive on the planet. But then, once we stopped foraging, hunting, devoted to agriculture, more than maybe 10, 11,000 years ago, and we became sedentary, and then we started thinking and worrying about, because there was so much at stake in future. Because what we are doing today, we never want to do it for today. We are always thinking about how that will happen in future. If you are planting something, only you can reap the benefit of that only in future. So future became far more important than present. So if you really look at it, the challenges that the world is facing today is because we are focusing too much on future. Everybody wants to make money. There is enough money available for everybody. Not for everybody. There are so many poor people in the world who have a big problem of present. And therefore they don't bother about future, because this my present is bad, why should I worry about the future? But those who have something, they are always trying to shape future. And this quest of human beings to so-called shaping of the future is cause of all the problems. If we are not worried about that, the nature would have taken what future would be automatically. But human beings felt that we have the ability to shape future, and that was cause of all problems. And therefore I think we should first of all use this opportunity of such brilliant minds that are here as well as part of the IET platform to find out how do you disengage human beings from focusing too much on future. I think that would be the best way of addressing the problem. Because when we think I can shape the future, then we said, oh, who is challenging me? I said, this so-called nature is challenging me, because this is not allowing me to do what I want to do. The water flows and causes floods. Actually, water is flowing in its own stream. There is no flooding which is causing problem to human beings. The human beings went there, settled down there. That's how the so-called flooding was affecting human beings. The wildlife was always roaming into the forest. But we wanted to capture the forest land, and therefore the so-called conflict with humans and animals started. So if animals will be wondering, where am I conflicting? I am just doing what I was doing for so many thousands of years. Suddenly somebody has come and is claiming to be the rightful owner of this place. So the conflict started. So anyway, the challenges of today have to be dealt with. We have created a problem, so we have to solve the problem. All the problems are created by human beings that nobody can question. In fact, the climate change itself as the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, which is all scientist panel, has already confirmed that more than 90%, 95% proof evidence available that it is all human induced. So in that situation, if we are the cause of the problem, how do you make ourselves as a part of a solution? And that's what we should try to do. I don't see many people on the planet are doing as much as, I'm not exaggerating, as much as meaningful engagement of the community, of those who have the ability to deal with this problem, are doing on this IET platform. See, for example, some of the top people I know in India who have excelled in their respective field are trying to give their time for this cause. It's not surprising. Like, for example, take Rishi. So his parents realized what his potential was, and therefore they called him Rishi. Rishi's job is to not work for himself but for others. That's why the Rishis are born on the planet. And therefore the Rishi Parampara, the heritage of Rishis, was broken some time back. And some people believe that that's the cause of the problem, because they had the wisdom to avoid the pitfall that the humanity will face over a period of time. So I'm very happy that Rishi is chairing some of these panels. And today, as we are discussing some very critical issues that world is facing, one is now what we are discussing today is healthcare. Actually, I was, as Tony was explaining, I was a member of parliament, Lok Sabha, from a constituency where before I became MP 26 years ago, there are not many roads. So we started, and I take the blame for it, we launched many programs. In fact, I must take a little bit of credit of Prime Minister Gram Sadak Yojana, which I suggested to then Prime Minister Vajpayee, and we started building rural roads. And then I started thinking that now in rural areas which was very remote, there were no rural roads, so there was no need for a primary health center. Because people are walking, and because they are walking, there was no need for there was a normal care that they were taking about themselves. But the road came, so necessarily a primary health center had to follow. So healthcare in modern world is now, everybody again agrees, all the doctors, all the medical fraternity, that many of these challenges are lifestyle challenges. Because we change a lifestyle, we are getting a problem. But healthcare is something now we'll have to refocus on. Because for a long time, and particularly in the developed world, we felt that healthcare is the responsibility of the individuals. So there is no need to look at public health. It's a private responsibility. Because what is health? It is your problem, your body. You take care of yourself. Why should a state bother about it? But a pandemic gave us a reminder call that public health is important, because public health is not taken care of, it will affect the private health. So it's not the other way around. And therefore, the refocusing on public health is a good beginning, wherein now we'll have to work on many of these issues and related challenges of that. So when you talk about healthcare, normally you think about the individual health, which is very important, of course. But the individual, when he is not well, and his wellness becomes an important preoccupation for him, he gets into the entire system, and then he realizes that a system itself, if it is not working in tandem, will not be able to get himself the kind of treatment that he needs. For example, obviously, the disease, the beginning of is diagnosis, and then there comes to the medication, etc. But a medication is provided by whom? Largely by pharma companies. Then if you are really sick, you have to be hospitalized. So hospitals become very necessary. Now in hospitals, obviously now it's technology driven. So you can find out every part of your, minutest part of your body, smallest part of your body, and actually can look into that very closely. Therefore so technology becomes important in that. But entire healthcare system, then of course medical professionals, which are very important, healthcare workers, If they are not in place, this will not work. And that's what we found during pandemic. That best of technology was available, but there was no human capital that had to support that was there in the place at the same time. So unless we put everything in place at the same time, we'll not get the kind of results that we want out of that healthcare system. So putting everything in place at the same time can also be a technology issue. So rather than looking at technology that is offered in the hospital, or the technology that makes medicines possible by developing a new molecule or by developing a new drug delivery system, that's a technology issue. But can we use technology of making sure that everything is in place at the same time, and therefore the entire ecosystem can function? And if it's not functioning efficiently, adequately, the end result will not be what we want. So you may have the best scanning machines, you may have best MRI machines available, but if everything is not in place, you will not get a result. So I think how do you do that is a very important issue. The second challenge is, of course, because we are doing technology. See, this is a paradox, that if you don't have technology, we will not be able to offer best of the solution. But if you have the technology, the cost of technology should be amortized. So therefore somebody or the other has to pay for it. So the cost of healthcare increases because you use technology. Now who bears the cost? Ultimately you will say that individual has to bear the cost, and that's what the debate between public health and private healthcare system. But when you want to do that, it is impossible that particularly the poor of the world can afford it. In fact, now we are seeing people becoming poor because of healthcare costs. They cannot afford it. In fact, I've seen myself, when my mother was in the hospital, there's a person in the next room, the patient. So I asked the family, how is he? He says, he's okay. So then why are you not going home? He said, we have to pay the bill of the hospital, and the hospital is saying, unless you pay, we'll not allow you to go. So he says, it's increasing every day. So it's like an interest that you keep on the borrowed amount. So the borrowed amount, the capital was less, and now the interest is more. That's the cost that sometimes it happens. So the question that will come now is, how do you make sure that this increased cost because of technology infusion are properly taken care of? And that is an issue which now again, the conflict between state and the individual. The individual is expecting that the state should take part of it through public insurance, and that's why in US, the Obamacare was one of the interventions. And now I think even in India, thanks to Prime Minister Modi, we also introduced some concept of public health insurance. But I think that's another very important challenge that we are going to face. And then that poses another problem, actually, because the people's lifespan is increasing. In India, when people used to, now India's retirement age was 58, because people felt at 58, you'll retire and then after some time you'll go away from here. But not only in India, globally, the life expectancy having gone up, the people are living much, much longer after they start working. Now this is a burden somebody has to bear. Who is going to pay for it? If somebody was working, then he at least is contributing through his productivity, if nothing else, to the betterment of the society. But if you are not working and still living, who takes care of you? You can say very obvious answer will be family. But what is family? Ultimately, family also has to, there are 5 people in the family and 3 are not working, 2 are working, it is not going to sustainable. So on a long-term basis, we'll have to think about a very big challenge of people living longer without earning anything. And that is a big issue on healthcare, which related to healthcare, which we'll have to address. And therefore, I think when we say that state will take care of pensions, state will take care of the healthcare system, they will have insurance, public insurance and everything else. Ultimately, where the state is going to find money? State ultimately will collect it from the taxes. And who will pay the taxes? The earning people will pay the taxes. So just imagine over a period of time the imbalance that is going to take place on the world, that there will be few people paying taxes to the government. The government wants to spend on those and rightly so, of course, there is no question about it, that from humanitarian point of view is perfect, are going to take care of those who are not working. So how long that will continue and in what manner it will go is something we really need to look at. At a time when most of the OECD countries, the most richest countries of the world, the public debt to GDP ratio has reached alarming level. Like in case of US, it is 150%. In case of Japan, it is 263%. So when we have such high public debt to GDP ratio, forget taking care of the elderly and others, we'll have to take care of past obligations. So in that context, because what are you paying interest? You are servicing debt is what? The obligation of the past. So when you talk about the future Congress, you have to think about where the future came from. The challenges of future are because of the past action. So I am also responsible. You read out about my past, so I am responsible for creating challenges for future. So in that context, and that's what I was saying yesterday when the award function was getting over, I hope our present we use not to create challenges for future. Even if we do that, that itself is the best contribution we can make for future. So rather than finding out, and therefore I think engineers of your caliber, I'm sure will contribute to that a great deal. As I said, the future always have fascinated human beings. And therefore there are a lot of fortune tellers in the world. In fact, they make more money than those who actually go to them, because they always will tell you this is very problematic for you. Oh, so that becomes an engagement which never ends. Because the problem of the person who is going to pay for it is the stake that he has got in engaging with him. So he'll always keep creating and telling you about it. And then it's a good part of fortune teller is that the not so-called fortune ever comes, and then there's not an ability for him to tell it either. But a good part of it that it is he's telling about something which I'm avoiding. See, this is a very good part. When you say that you would have faced an accident, but thanks to my intervention and thanks to invoking some powers, I avoided the accident. Now how do you prove this? How do you make sure that it happens? But the fortune tellers or the so-called, those who have this ability to peep into the future, the shamans of the world, I think more importantly is the engineers of the world, who have the ability to shape in such a way that you can really avoid the so-called future disasters. And I hope these deliberations will lead to that. So once again, congratulations. I'm very happy that you have been able to blend top people and in a manner that can do it. So engineers have done some phenomenal things. There wouldn't be Three Gorges project, which is the biggest hydroelectric project of the world, without engineering. But now this year, interestingly, it was to tame Yangtze River, which is one of the world's mightiest rivers. And Yangtze has gone dry. So this is a big issue. So now what happened to the engineering marvel? Because the water is not flowing. What do you do with the storage? What do you do with generate electricity? So I think this is also the nature. So water was flowing because of nature's flow. So they saw nature's flow. So engineers have ability to do something which can help avoid disasters, but we cannot change the nature. So now the new engineering will have to work with the nature in a way that we do not challenge the nature, but work with the nature in such a way that both of us can live in harmony with each other. And that's why if you do that, if you can live in harmony with all the forces of the planet, that's the only way we can shape the future better. So I hope we do that. And to do that, what is needed, along with technical expertise, is the wisdom. And in the wisdom can come from the Rishis, the technical abilities can come from Bhatnagar, and therefore I think Rishi Bhatnagar is the right person to head this. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Shri Suresh Prabhu sir, for this.
Fascination for the future stems from living a better world for our general next.
Thank you, Maya. I think that was really powerful and inspiring, sir. One thing I think that he's mentioned is left with all of us is how can we be part of the solution? I think we all as individuals should think about that. And I would now request Shekhar Sanyal and Dr. Rishi Bhatnagar to please come on the stage to felicitate Shri Suresh Prabhu, sir.